Hi, this is Jared Walton with Tom's Hardware, and today we are looking at the unboxing of the AMD Radeon RX 6800 and the RX 6800 XT. You can see that we've got two different boxes here, the big box for the XT and a slightly smaller box, slightly less fully featured box for the vanilla RX 6800. I'm going to go ahead and start with the little brother here. This is the $579 RX 6800. The box is, for lack of a better way of putting it, it's just not as nice and exciting. You know, traditional, you got to open the flaps and pull stuff out. So let's go ahead and do that. And here you have the first look at the card. So you've got this little cover you can pull off, and inside you get the RX 6800. In terms of design, this is a traditional triple slot cooling card. It's got three fans that are about 77 millimeters in diameter, so a little bit of a unique custom design there. I'm sure others use that same form factor, but you know, these are definitely custom designed for AMD because they've got the R logos on them, a little bit of a unique fan blade. And as we've seen with a lot of other recent cards, including NVIDIA's 30 series Founders Edition cards, the fans all have an integrated rim that spins with the fan. That generally helps to improve static pressure and drive better airflow down into the cooling fins. But this is, you know, just an open air design, so it will blow down into the heatsink and exhaust out the bottom and top of the card. I don't know that I love that type of design. It works fine, but it does end up causing some dust buildup down on your motherboard over time. I've seen that in a lot of my PCs. So, you know, it's something to be aware of, that you'll want to keep it clean and probably do that every 3 to 6 month blowout with your compressed air or whatever else you got. But let's move on to the video ports on the back here. This is where it gets interesting because this is perhaps the least exciting, full-featured, whatever you want to call it, graphics card that I've seen for a high-end graphics card in recent times. So there are only two DisplayPort connectors and one HDMI 2.1 connector, and then there's the USB Type-C connector, which I guess maybe could be used for Virtual Link, but Virtual Link is dead. I mean, even NVIDIA's dropped that for its 30 series. Almost no one outside of NVIDIA did much with it on the 20 series. So it's interesting to see it show up here. Maybe there are some upcoming VR headsets that will actually make use of it, but whatever the case, that's what AMD is going with. Dimensions, the card is about 10.5 inches long, or if you prefer that in millimeters, it's around 268 millimeters. And then it's also around 4.25 inches tall, about 117 millimeters, give or take. And this is a dual slot design. Nothing particularly noteworthy there. It takes up 2 slots, like just about every other graphics card I've seen in the past decade. I mean, single slot graphics cards are such a rarity these days. I mean, there are definitely larger graphics cards, but anything above like the very bare minimum tends to be a dual slot design. It also weighs 1,389 grams, or about 3 pounds and 1 ounce. So it's a chunky little card, you know, for a relatively compact design. It weighs about as much as NVIDIA's RTX 3080 Founders Edition. Nowhere near as massive as the 3090, of course. Just about nothing is that big. Every time I pick up the 3090 Founders Edition, I'm still like shocked at how heavy it is. That about does it for the major features. There are 2 PEG 8-pin connectors for power, so theoretically through the PCI Express slot and the 2 power connectors, it could draw up to 370 watts of power, 375 watts. You're not going to get anywhere near that in normal operation, but maybe if you did liquid nitrogen or something in a custom cooler and you tweak the power delivery to exceed the limits, you could potentially overclock it a fair amount, but that's not what I'll be doing. Let's go ahead and put this one away and move on to the big brother. And literally, it is the big brother. The box is bigger. It's a little bit more robust. You know, it's kind of, I don't know that is that much of a big deal, but you got to slit the side open here, and then you flip up the flap, and then that gets you access to the card after you remove this cover. And here you go. This is the Radeon RX 6800 XT. At first blush, this is nearly identical looking to the 6800. The key difference being it's about 2.5 slots thick, and the red Radeon light up logo on the 6800 has been replaced by, well, it looks white to the eye, but I believe it's an RGB controllable Radeon LED logo on the side of the 6800 XT. I should note that the 6800 XT also does support the rage mode. I don't want to call it overclocking because it's not really overclocking. AMD's new software has a rage mode that basically removes the power limits. Or not removes them, but it increases the power limit by 7% or something like that. And that allows the card to boost higher and run at faster speeds. Otherwise, same dimensions other than it's 2.5 slots thick. It does weigh more. It weighs about 115 grams more. So it's 1.5 kilograms plus 5 grams extra. And in terms of, those of us who stick with the old Imperial system, it's 3 pounds, 5.1 ounces. Same port selection. It's got 2 DisplayPort 1.4, 1 HDMI 2.1, and a USB Type-C. So if you wanted to do quad monitors on this, you would have to look at adapters, and that's kind of a pain, but I don't know. You could probably, anyone who's really interested in quad monitors, I think you would probably want to look at a custom design that has the port selection you want. That about does it for the overview of these cards, the unboxing. Obviously, we can't talk benchmarks or power or any of that other stuff today. I can tell you the official specs. The RX 6800 XT has a 300 watt TDP, so 50 watts higher than the vanilla 6800. And it's also clocked a little bit higher, and it has 72 compute units versus 60 compute units. So you would expect it to, all other things being similar, it's going to use more power, and that's why it's got the higher powered TDP. And we'll be back on November 18th with the full review of these cards. I'll also hop on the Tom's Hardware live stream and discuss the cards and the review in more detail there. We'll actually be able to show benchmarks at that time. We will be back on November 18th, and I will be on the Tom's Hardware live stream, and we'll talk about more of the nuances of this review. Besides your traditional performance, we've also got ray tracing performance that we're going to look at and see how that stacks up to NVIDIA. And yeah, it's going to be exciting. Of note, architecturally, AMD has taken a very different route than NVIDIA this round, and they've basically thrown a ton of L3 cache at the problem of bandwidth and performance. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory running at a relatively tame 14 gigabits per second. So on a 256-bit bus, this is the same theoretical bandwidth as the previous gen RX 5700 XT, except this time AMD has Infinity Cache, and it says it can get up to more than double the effective bandwidth thanks to that Infinity Cache. So that is going to be very interesting. You've got NVIDIA has an 8 gigabyte 3070 and a 10 gigabyte 3080, and AMD counters with 16 gigabyte GDDR6 cards. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but it is looking to be one of the most interesting matchups between AMD and NVIDIA of the past decade or more. It's been a long time since AMD has really had something that could compete with NVIDIA's best, and that seems to be what AMD is going after here. I mean, the upcoming RX 6900 XT is priced at $1,000, and we haven't really seen that since AMD's old dual GPU R9 295X2. So this is a return to the extreme performance and high-end markets for AMD, and we'll see if they can compete. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, share with your friends, and hop on the live stream and you can ask us questions, and we'll be happy to take your questions and answer them as best as we're able come Wednesday.